Hey guys, Bada Bing here, thanks for joining me. We are back with the Tokyo Marui M4 MWS GBBR. It's recently celebrated its 4th year on the market, so happy birthday to the platform that has become something of a legend among the airsoft gas blowback community. I've seen so many people adopting this rifle off the back of the overwhelmingly positive reports on Facebook, forums, and of course the playing field. A chunk of those people have found this GBBR by watching videos on YouTube, and a small percentage just might have caught one of my videos on it. So thanks to those of you that have tuned into my earlier work on this rifle, and if you enjoy content like this and want to show your support, hit subscribe. As we transition out of the intro, I guess all that's left to say is that I hope you've got your cup of coffee ready to go, and if you do, let's do this. Yes, this system is now 4 years old, and I am still using the very same rifle that I bought way back in 2015. In fact, this was one of the very first Marui Gas M4s out of Japan, and I got it from Impulse 101. They're a great bunch of guys with all the best goodies from the land of the rising sun. If you need anything Japanese, Impulse 101, it's one of the best places to go. Now, my rifle itself has been kept relatively untouched since I've got it. I just can't seem to stay away from its out-of-the-box configuration. I mean, I've had the Mark 18 kit and the awesome M16A4 build, but I always find myself back here. The Cerakote finish is doing its job and maintains a solid coating. Light grazes here and there, but that's to be expected after 4 years. The only way you can really tell it's aging is by looking at the various controls and components. The bolt catch, castle nut, charging handle, magazine button, selector switch, and the trigger. The paint that TM uses on most of their external metal components, whether it be on rifles or pistols, is generally thin and quite cheap, and they've used this stuff forever. It's had plenty of time to loosen up, so the upper receiver wobbles a tiny bit. ARs can all do this to some extent, and it's more noticeable when there's a lot more weight bolted on, case in point my M16 setup. Functionally, the M4 is still spot on. The Z system that TM developed remains 100% all these years later. On older gas M4s like the WEs and the version 1 GHKs, I was always reluctant to use the bolt release because of the threat of wearing them down, resulting in intermittent bolt locking issues. I usually ran the charging handle, but the TM M4, I'd smash that thing all the time and it just works, and it's as dependable as a morning sunrise. Closing the bolt by pushing the bolt release reveals a very tactile clunk as the working parts drop in a microsecond. The selector switch maintains its light but positive rotations. Magazines glide into the lock just as well as they did on the first day, and the charging action is still as smooth as silk. Because of the nature of the internals, the action has a very high lubricity sensation. The bolt feels slick as it runs over the hammer, even though it's been chewed up over the countless amounts of cycles. Within those internals, it all looks ship-shape. Nothing looks like it requires attention or replacing. The trigger action still isn't a favourite of mine, but I've complained about that one before. The mushy reset is my main gripe with it. In the past it's failed to reset properly, so it did benefit from a good clean out. One of the biggest changes that I've made, which isn't necessarily obvious, is the outer barrel. This is the Angry Gun multi-length outer barrel assembly, and it allows me to set it up as a 10-inch, 12-inch, 14.5 or 16-inch carbine length. Along with that, I've installed an NPAS kit into the nozzle, which tames the FPS. This is a very old RA-Tech NPAS for the WE Open Bolt series, and luckily, it's a drop-in fit. Furthermore, the last change I've made to my rifle is the upgraded nozzle spring by UAC, following a catastrophic failure of the original return spring during my UAC lightweight bolt carrier video review. As I use propane exclusively, this makes the working parts run much quicker than it would do with HFC 134A or 144A gas. So the stock spring just isn't designed to operate in those conditions, and sooner or later, it will pop. This is one of the most common problems with this platform, but it really is no big deal as it's so easy to put right, and it can be done for a tenner. Unfortunately, the upgraded nozzle spring didn't last. During a regular Sunday skirmish, it snapped in the same place where the original one broke. It jammed up the M4 so bad that I couldn't even separate the receivers because the bolt carrier was protruding into the buffer tube. I had to remove the entire buffer tube and have a friend push down on the bolt carrier so that I could unhook the lower receiver extension over the tail of the carrier. It was a monumental failure, all because of a mangled nozzle spring. To my surprise, the spring wasn't too badly damaged, and I was able to make up a new coil ring and reattach it. To this day, it's still using that very same spring. I really ought to get a new one. The outer barrel, MPAS and nozzle spring set are the only changes I've actually made to this rifle. It's essentially original everywhere else. And that's all I have to report on the 2 years since we've last checked in on it. Let's take a look at what it's doing on the Chrono. I charged 10 seconds of propane into an unmodified magazine, which by the way is newer than the rest of my old 2015 mags. The results show consistent readings within the 310s. The average was 314.7 across the 35 shots, the highest coming in at 323.6, and the lowest being the final shot at 299.5. I do have an NPAS kit installed within this rifle, and to be honest I expected it to produce numbers wildly different from one another, so this isn't bad at all. Speaking of the gas efficiency, I had a look at a brand new magazine, and I noted that it has a number 2 stamped into the gas tank under the base plate. I didn't know the relevance of this compared to my original magazines until I started using it. Completely unmodified and beginning with a 5-second gas charge, firing once every second, the total round count was 44 shots before the gas tank ran empty. Not bad considering the limited amount of fuel I pumped in there. Loading 10 seconds worth bumped those numbers up to 83. Already this has surpassed what my original magazines were capable of by a margin of about 20. Continuing on to 15 seconds, and the M4 was able to get off 136 shots. Now, I will mention that this is creeping up on overfilling. For practical purposes, you should do just fine with 10 to 12 second gas charge for optimal performance. Although the tube still remains inside the gas tank, I thought it'll let me know when it's completed with a large residual gas discharge from the fill valve, so I pressed on. 20 seconds and the M4 fired its last puff at 186. This is the equivalent of 22 grams of gas that has just ran through the system. Completely overkill? Yes. But this is a far cry from what my original 2015 magazines could do without the green gas mod. They could barely take on 8 seconds of gas, let alone 20, so my old ones, and other ones from the same era, benefited from the tubes being removed. Now, it's completely unnecessary. Behind closed doors, TM continually improve upon their work, and the only way you'd know for sure is by comparing their components, past and present. To this day, the M4 shoots with such crisp aggression, it's as swift as breaking glass. In-game, it shreds, often to an extent where people firing around you will stop turn around and see what it is you're using. If you're one of those users that have had teammates stop playing and start watching you, sound off in the comments. Fully automatic performance is great. For the most consistent results, you only need about an 8 to 10 second gas charge for an uninterrupted magazine dump. In this condition, it only allows you to empty 1.5 magazine fills of BBs before the gas tank runs out. Okay, on a cold mag, 12 seconds gas charge, fully automatic. Let's see how we do. Not bad. Round 2. There we go. Managed to clear a second 35 round magazine on the 12 second gas charge. This is the third magazine load, so let's do it. Overall, I think I've covered the outstanding shootability of these M4s, so there's nothing more I could do to sell the system to you. After all, these babies sell themselves. Still runs like a champ! I've also covered cold weather performance and accuracy on previous videos. Here's my latest set of groupings if you're interested. But what I haven't covered before is the range. With its original hop-up parts, they can lift BBs up to .3s. If you're looking to launch heavier rounds, then you'll have to consider upgrades. Mine can lift .3s with no problem, and these fly out to around 60 meters, or 65 meters on a good day. And on a very good day, I've had them hitting the fence at 70 meters. You can just about see a BB hitting those leaves. Sending them out to hit a man-sized target at that distance is going to be a tough shot for a stock MWS to make. At 65 meters, you might get lucky once or twice within your 35 round magazine capacity, as long as the conditions are favourable. As far as long range goes, 50 meters would yield your most successful hit probability. I was able to strike the target several times in a row. This kind of performance suits me just fine, although it does leave some room for improvement, and of course, this could be improved upon if you so desire. Combined with some good quality BBs and a well-adjusted hop-up, you can zero an optic, which would achieve supreme accuracy within a short distance, making it as reliable as a point-and-click mouse cursor. We've all seen this before on my previous 2-year video, but let's take a look at how it's doing when we break down the pros and cons. The Cerakote finish is a marvellous thing. To this day, the carbine looks fantastic. It has good build quality with durable internals. The action is smooth, it's really snappy. The accuracy is good, and the range is also good. The stock gas efficiency is great. Their Z system provides phenomenal bolt lock reliability. The cold weather performance is superb, and this system has so much third-party support from multiple companies. From tiny internal upgrades to all-out receiver packages, the possibilities are almost limitless. Chief among the small list of negatives has to be the nozzle springs. It's the weakest link of this rifle. If you want to run green gas, buy an upgraded spring and keep it for when the original one blows. The lower fire control group isn't realistic and has lots of small components, so it can be quite complicated to take down at first. The trigger performance is very toy-like, although upgrades are available to make it operate better. The hop-up adjustment is accurate, but it's awkward to get to, and it's impossible to adjust quickly on the field. It has limited compatibility with real AR parts, so handguards, rail systems mostly, are not interchangeable. The cost is around £450 to £550 or dollars. Account for the cost of magazines, and it's a GBBR platform that can be expensive to get off the ground. And finally, the recoil for a stock rifle is low when compared to other gas rifles. The Tokyo Marui M4 MWS does its own thing by being the best airsoft gun it can be, and using that mindset as its prime directive. It's tailored for the playing field without having a huge emphasis on realism, and you know they've captured lightning in a bottle when you're using it in game. It's a symphony of performance.
I got nothing, Jay. I got nothing.
The very impression that it has when it's in an enclosed environment, the sound of it, tends to win the argument. People always ask if they can use green gas with this rifle. Yes, you absolutely can. Just accept the fact that you're going to need a new nozzle spring at some point, and perhaps a replacement buffer, seeing as the original one is plastic. In 4 years it only owes me a couple of inexpensive springs. The system has a lot of value in it, and it's definitely worth the investment. Factor in all those other advantages and the end result is a gas blowback rifle that is among the very best you can buy. Thanks for watching the video, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, show me by hitting the like. If you haven't already subscribed, why not join me and become notified for when my next video goes live. You can check out my Facebook and Instagram if you want to see regular updates. So until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in a bit.